Good afternoon. Greetings, welcome. My name is Sharon Farb. I'm the Associate University Librarian and Chief Policy Strategist here at the UCLA Library. And I am so excited about this afternoon's program. I just want to welcome all of you and thank you for coming and making time to be with us this afternoon to see this amazing creativity of the UCLA students who are going to be showcased this afternoon. Before we get started, the UCLA Library acknowledges the Gabrielino Tongva peoples as the traditional caretakers of the Tovangar. That's the Los Angeles Basin and the South Channel Islands. As a land-grant institution, we pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and our relatives, past, present, and emerging. As an uninvited guest on this land, I want to thank and recognize the Gabrielino Tongva people as the traditional stewards of the land, the water, and their ancestors since time immemorial. Today's program is Bruins Belong, Diasporas and the Meaning of Home, which is part of a series, this is our concluding event today, on diasporas, transnational migrations, spaces, and identities. This series aims to explore diasporas from around the world, from various lenses, personal stories, academic research, community endeavors, art, in order to provide a better understanding of the experiences of migrants and their descendants in creating community, negotiating identity, and preserving and transforming cultural traditions. I want to give a shout out to the folks who planned this, who organized it, that made it possible. There's a long list. Some of those folks you all have met, whether the people who contacted you about being here, all of our amazing students today, the folks that have planned the series overall, the folks who arranged for this great food in the back, so, and everyone here at the library who has helped to put this and make this possible. Thank you all. Moderating our journey this afternoon is one of my colleagues and one of our amazing librarians here, Shannon Tadhari Ayari. Shannon is the librarian curator for European Studies. She's based here in the research library. She develops resources, collections pertaining to Western Europe, and also offers research assistance, library instructions for students and faculty. Shannon holds a PhD, I should have referred to his doctorate, to my bad. Holds a PhD in folklore and ethnomusicology, and she has a master's in library science from Indiana University, Bloomington, as well as a bachelor's degree in English and rhetoric creative writing from the University of Illinois. So please join me in having, and first of all, a big round of applause for all of us and all of you for being here, for our amazing students, and Shannon will get us started, and thank you all again.
Thank you, Sharon. So hello and welcome. On behalf of the library's International and Area Studies outreach team, who was responsible for planning this showcase, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited and privileged to get to introduce you to 9 very talented student artists and writers from our UCLA community, all of whom belong to diasporic communities as well. They will be sharing a variety of original creative works with you this afternoon, from poetry and narrative nonfiction to visual art, and they'll be framing these works in terms of their own identities and experiences of diaspora, home, and belonging. Please hold any questions you have until the very end. If there's time, we'll do a quick Q&A session. Please also remember to silence your cell phones and any other electronic devices. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our first presenter. Sheldon Skobolov is a junior at UCLA, pursuing a bachelor's degree in theater and professional writing. A Latino Jew from Las Vegas, Nevada, he's deeply interested in the ways that different diasporas and cultures intersect, and explores these topics through poetry, music, and storytelling and sound design. In 2020, he became an alumni scholar, and in 2022, a Hay Alma College Writing Fellow. Sheldon welcomes you to connect with him. You can see in the program, some of the students have listed their contact information, so please watch out for that. Sheldon will be reading 3 poems. The first is called An Ode to Vinyls, then dry lake beds, which we will project because there's a visual component, and lastly, terracotta. So please, let's welcome Sheldon.
Hello. My first poem that I'll be reading today is an ode to vinyls. All of these poems were written last year during winter quarter, so between Zoom and being physical. This poem was written for an assignment to imitate a Ross Gay style ode of poetry, and it is about the vinyls that I inherited from my grandfather after he passed away in June of 2020, and about how I really learned more about his Colombian identity after his passing, because it wasn't really something that he discussed while he was alive. A leather-bound chest covered in gold fleur-de-lis is carefully unlocked, latch by latch, and upon its opening releases the library-like smell of yellowed and tattered cardboard. My bird's eye fingers are greeted by a faded rainbow with a rugged exterior and the sleek yet sticky sensation of dust. White labels, self-laminated and preserved with Scotch tape, are clean and pristine, a preservation of my grandfather's handwriting and the last name Guzzi, written in black ink. Square sleeves that hold circles of sound are played by a diamond tip. Tip to groove, grooving to moving, the melody crackles to a beat that sizzles on a black body of vinyl waves, and the memory of a time long gone has made its way from a young man's quarters in Colombia to a teenager's bedroom in the USA. My eyes start to water as I listen to three dead men in ponchos sing about young love, and I remember that one time he told me that if I wanted to win a girl over, I needed to take her to a drive-in movie and kiss her sweetly. Lying on my floor, the tip reaches the end of its groove, but I don't want the music to be over. I want to keep singing with the music, to talk to the music, to hold the music in my hands one last time, but both sides have already been played, so I place the circle of sound back in its square sleeve. I put it back in the leather-bound chest it came from and close it, latch by latch. This next poem is called Dry Lake Beds. This is a poem about being Jewish and growing up in a desert. I grew up primarily in Las Vegas, Nevada. I really hated Las Vegas, Nevada for a long time and did not appreciate living there. But then I really realized how powerful it was that after my people wandering for 5,000 years, I ended up back in a desert where we have been for a very long time, and it's a place that's ecologically similar to our ancestral homelands. It is dry. Walking along centuries-old cracks carved by the sun, each group of lines unique, like the swirls and valleys of my palm, I look around at this place, all the same familiar and unknown, while wind rushes to find an exit. It is dry and it is empty, not a cactus to be seen, not a cloud in the sky. Where there was once a building block of life remains nothing. I can hear my breath, the first breath that's been here in a long time, and the sweat that drip, drip, drips down to the ground and vanishes into the thirsty crevices of what used to be. It is dry and it is empty and it is hot. Harassed by the heat, cooked by the heavens' corona, smooth and supple skin dries out and cracks, and the chalky floor is cool and comforting as I melt upon myself. It is dry and it is empty and it is hot and it is peaceful. I bathe in the beige dust. Each grain of sand kisses my body as it makes its way down, tickling and teasing. I yell at the yellow ball of fire in the baby blue sky that has never seen a cloud in its life. I am loud and I am passionate. I yell at the sun for smothering me in its heat that gave me my life and that will one day watch my death. There is no reaction. Nothing screams back, nothing takes the dust away from me. 5,000 years later, I am alone and I am free. Warmth washes over me like a bath drawn by my mom, and I finally want to be here. I finally want to be home. And this last poem is called Terracotta. It's inspired by the play Blue by Virginia Gries, which I read for a playwriting class last year. And recently I've been considering how Latino history and Latin American figures in the United States are kind of hidden by the media and how it's not really something that you grow up learning about. So For example, I was in a choir for a good 7-8 years of my life. Never once did I learn about Latin American composers or Latin American music in an educational setting, and I really feel like everything I have to learn about Latin America, even at the college level, has to be in a class where the topic is Latin American studies or ethnomusicology of Latin America. So this is about not wanting to be kept a secret anymore. It's called terracotta. We live under a blanket of secrets. Some made by us, some made for us. Some secrets are woven underground by our ancestors, waiting for the right time to pull out their needles. And some secrets sew us into the earth because they think we're worth more down there. But what they don't know is that we're molded from the dirt they try so hard to keep us under, in the image of those who came before us. That we are terracotta warriors of this tierra where gold and silver flow like water. That we are the flutes, the congas, the claves, the feet dancing on the soil making music for those who live below. That we are the voice singing out against the ones who keep us a secret. The funny thing about a secret is that it's meant to be cared for. But loose lips are always going to sink ships, and one day, people are going to hear our secret, see our secret, taste our secret, feel our secret. Right now, we sleep under the blanket, and the blanket's heavy, man. But just you wait. My abuela still got her needles, and she's poking holes through that blanket, taking thread to make clothes for all her gorditos and gorditas. Soon, there will be many of us. Soon, there will be as many of us as there used to be. It won't be so heavy then. One day, we're not going to be a secret anymore. One day, we're going to leave this place. But this place isn't going to leave us. This secret isn't going to leave us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sheldon. That was really beautiful. I hope that some of you will consider publishing your works. I really think you should do that. Okay, so next, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to have Agnes Lin. Agnes is our first visual artist of the afternoon. Agnes is a fourth-year art and art history major at UCLA. She's a current recipient of the Art Department Senior Studio Space and a nominee for the 2023-24 Department of Art Merit Scholarship. A Chinese Jew from San Diego, Agnes is interested in the development of living traditions and diaspora identities. In her work, she observes how traditions she has inherited change, evolve, and adapt to foreign cultural contexts and colonized indigenous landscapes. Agnes will be presenting fabric tapestries created using cyanotype, silk thread, and canvas. The title of her work is Inheritance. So let's welcome her.
Hello everyone. Before I start talking about the concept behind my work, I just want to explain how the work was made because I get a lot of questions about that. The works I'm showing right now are the two blue tapestries. So I use this dye called cyanotype. Some of you might be familiar with it, but pretty much it reacts to UV light and changes colors. So what I do is I expose photos with this dye. You might have seen this done before. You might have seen it done with like plants, where people put like a plant over a cyanotype coated piece of paper or fabric. But what I do is I coat my own fabric by painting the cyanotype dye on in the style of my grandfather's Chinese watercolor paintings. And then only what is painted with cyanotype exposes the photo. So if there's no cyanotype dye on a certain part of the fabric, there is no photograph that can be exposed by the sun. I know that might be a little bit confusing, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And then also the rim of the edges of both of the pieces are embroidered with silk thread that I inherited from my other grandmother on the other side of my family. And in the works, I'm wearing my grandmother's qipao. So, Inheritance explores the nuance of living and connecting with indigenous land as a non-indigenous settler. I expose self-portraits set in Southern California's landscapes with cyanotype brushstrokes in the style of Chinese landscape paintings. My gestures mimic the style of my grandfather's experimental Chinese ink and watercolor paintings, a painting tradition rooted in a landscape I have never set foot in. Wearing my grandmother's qipao, I explore the coexistence of my Chinese cultural inheritance in a land which I am not indigenous to, Kumeyaay and Tobanga land. The hand-embroidered canvas speaks to familial relationships, self-expressions, and homemade traditions. Feel free after the programming to touch it if you have clean hands, or ask me any questions about it. But I created these works because I think it's really important that we acknowledge our relationship to our homes, and we acknowledge the parts of our homes we can claim as ours, and the parts of our homes we have to respect as someone else's, depending on our cultural relationship to that land. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes. And yeah, like Agnes says, please do at the end come up and look at the artwork more closely. We'll hopefully have plenty of time for that. So coming around the room as I'm reading the next bio is a visual poem by Chelsea Dye. Chelsea is a first-year theater major with a focus in playwriting, and she's also pursuing a minor in comparative literature. Born and raised in Southeast China, she currently resides in LA and Queens, New York. She is a young filmmaker, theater artist, and writer. Chelsea's past works range from plays to poems, from dramedy television to screenplays, exploring themes of Asian American diaspora and experience, social realism, dark comedy, and satire. Chelsea's poem is called A City of Stars, and yeah, hopefully it's made its way to you by now, so please welcome Chelsea.
Hi, just while everyone's getting the poetry, I'll do a quick introduction of what it is about. When I submitted, I choose the category of poem, but it can also be, it's written in the style of poetic prose, structured in visual poetry. As you can see, the top part is shaped as an eye, and the bottom part of the piece is like a drip of tear or water or sweat. This work was made about the time I was in between places, moving from China to New York, and now here, what is be like to be constantly on the move, and what happened during the time, the things that happened that have challenged my perception and understanding of my home and identity, that include the pass away of a family member and letting someone that I've met to come against me because of my identity. And it's also about being my younger self, and reading the poems that's written by mainly second generation immigrant teenager, and what's that experience like for me to understand like immigrant arts, immigrant literature, and what is it for me to be like writing right now. I have too many homes now, being their existent dignity. You tell me what home is. The childhood home I kept dreaming about, places I can't afford to return, facade that only exists in someone else's dreams and prayers now. For months, I sat there, another room, another continent, thinking about what the future holds. Seeing teenagers write about the wailing infants they never had, watching them talking about the maroon bruises on the ankles of daughters that they once were, and their mother's fragmented sentences attributable to America. What it must be like having to fight for those promised dreams, costs of living, burdens of life. For months, conquer the language so now whenever they hear the word China roll out of my mouth, I know there will always be a wow. Oh, how good your English is. Then, out of JFK down to back to claim, there's a jar awaiting everyone on top of everything else. A collection, poetry, mom's tears, grandma's goodbye. A glossary, neighborhoods, transit, differentiate quarters from dimes. Down another level to the dilapidated platform, you can see how everything is exchanged here. My composition handed over to the beat and rhythm of trains. Under that term and condition, I was granted a pace and tongue as transit passed. You can go through a turnstile now. Here, too many people have traded something for a tile on the wall, a piece of metal on a train rack. The heater, the AC, the parts of self left behind accumulated the rattling and clattering that I would have eventually learned to fall asleep to. Oh, how they serenade lullabies. Singing incessantly. To that, I think long. How from now on, in New York, where you're from stands for a black and white portrait of Grandpa, sitting there, facing a lake we used to walk along, forever in memoriam. In too many dreams annihilated, I saw the faces never to be seen again as distance only increased. Of a gonzo that Brighton Beach Boys sang before summer ended, before I learned, not the poems carried weight. Though it carried power to rob me of my sentences when I tried to speak of my first home. Then you see how it's a relic with explosives in it. Whenever I approach it, I can most read shame in anagram. And I find myself flying away, thinking long again, dreading the idea of having to relive the shaming, landing, anticipating a voicemail that have never arrived, shattered. But maybe that's how people heal, by being far away, moving in and out. Getting a call from mom, she says you must be really happy now, chasing your dream over there. But how do I tell her the stars people chase after are false pretenses, only the ones glittering on the Hollywood sign? And there are too many stars in the sky here too. Hey, I'm learning to observe the stars like a kid again. In Los Angeles, where we're from stands for home on an island that I have left behind across the sea, with the same kind of palm trees and skyline and beach of LA that I wish I was taught to write about more. I'm learning to here right now, every day. In LA, we're from also stands for a dotted line that lead me to the capsules for countless dreams. For Grandpa's brother playing mahjong on Eldridge Street and recollecting their childhood together before getting separated by the sea. In Los Angeles, there's a corner where I call home, where I store a jar of collections, grocery, and relics of aged poems way up there in the cabinet. It's a making of a home that's signifying me, being here, existing, dignified. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Okay, next we have Nicole Crawford. Nicole is a second-year undergraduate student, double majoring in political science and sociology with a minor in African and Middle Eastern studies. At school, Nicole is a writer and outreach director from Nomo magazine and hosts political education classes in partnership with the African Student Union. Outside of school, they are an organizer and volunteer with the nonprofit Neighbor Program, a Pan-African socialist organization that is modeled after the Black Panther 10-point platform, which aims to provide free survival and liberation resources to the greater Pan-African community in the Sacramento area. Nicole has been writing poetry for about 9 years. According to Nicole, quote, "Poetry is my favorite form of artistic expression, and the way in which I look to speak life into my community and heal myself as I navigate my place in the world as an African," end quote. Nicole invites you to connect with them over social media, so look for that in the program, and they're going to present a spoken word poetry called Generational Curses 3.
Hi, yeah, I'm Nicole, and the piece I'll be presenting for you guys today is Generational Curses 3. Just a background, it's a part of my Generational Curses series that is a reflection on the promises made to immigrants before they come here to America. My mom is from Nigeria. I'm a first-generation immigrant, and she came here with a lot of dreams and expectations given to all she was promised back in Nigeria. But as she navigated her way through Americanization and growing up here myself, for me and my sister, I found it to be contradictory to come to America as an immigrant, a Nigerian immigrant, as an African, and to essentially believe that these dreams were for us. I found that these dreams were often not, and that the hardships continued no matter where we were, given our place and positionality within the world. So this piece is a reflection on that, and also a reflection on the greater Pan-African diaspora and the houseless community that I work with as well, and about just finding similarity in humanity and community in our shared experiences as a Pan-African diaspora. So I hope you guys enjoy the piece. You struggle to meet the eyes of the houseless within your community because you too cannot afford groceries or your lifestyle or rent, but you would rather turn your nose up to your reflections and hope that if you ignore the mirrors around you for long enough, they will disappear. But they won't. They never do. Whether you see monsters or martyrs within your reflections, you must understand that these are remnants of you too. What was lost and what is found in these moments of pause are the truth of this existence. The beginning of internal dialogue that pushes us into action if we are able to hear the sounds of our own voices in the midst of the chaos. The voices that tell us that as we run from who we are, we become all that we fear. And not because this life is some game of luck and misfortune, but because we live within a world that chooses to let us survive. Not as whole beings, but as false prophets. And so as long as we deny our ancestral truths, the truths that show us that apathy only creates further division, but neglects to feed starving children, we are safe. But I ask you, what is safety without freedom? Safety here is to be fully conformed in the eyes of the oppressor, and no longer a threat to the empire that gives us false names and applauds our confusion. So much so that we struggle to mutter Oshun and Shengo and Ogun or Yemaya in our native tongues because we have forgotten who to call, or because we fear that it is too late to reclaim what they have stolen. Know that to survive this hell is to first see yourself in your entirety, to know who you are and where you have come from, to know that this is not a home, and it will never be able to be made into one. And that the mirrors around you reflect truth, not pity. We cannot afford to be blind to the reality of our sisters and brothers and the distant relatives who we may not have known in this life, but surely will in the next. As long as there are mouths to feed and bodies to clothe, we have more work to do here. And as I believe that we are all one, and that we are all that we have left, we cannot afford to live and love as false prophets. We cannot afford to see anything less than the truth of this reality. We need one another to survive. But to see ourselves as one and to truly be whole means to look one another in the eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Nicole. Okay, next we have Ryan Hanami. Ryan is a multidisciplinary artist from Los Angeles, focusing in painting and sculpture. Inspired by his Japanese and Mexican heritage, Ryan's work delves into themes of identity, culture, and community. As a non-traditional student and art handler, he has overcome adversity, fueling and informing his passion for creating art that addresses social issues and fosters understanding. Ryan has collaborated with numerous artists and co-founded the innovative pop-up gallery, Demo Blank, which partnered with LA Crop Swap to promote sustainable and equitable food communities. Ryan invites you to connect with him over his website, social media accounts, and those are listed in the program. He will be presenting artwork entitled Through the Looking Glass or Nose Goes. The medium of the work is oil on found metal.
So yeah, my work is the one in the middle, the self-portrait. I think, to preface all of this, I think it's most important for me to explain, like, my grandma was a hibakusha, which literally translates to bomb-affected people. She was an atomic bomb survivor, and that's on my dad's side. And on my mom's side, she's from Mexico, and she came here to basically escape like a very abusive family situation. So I think for me, in the context of diaspora, it's from a very personal experience. And so I think that's why, like, I kind of painted myself with like my chin up. It's kind of meant to be like just an expression of like defiance. It's confusing too growing up just like as a multiracial person, because I feel like I'm not really accepted by either sides. And yeah, like these numbers around my head are kind of meant to express like this sequence of my life sort of thing. And then the halo around my head is an artwork by my father, Clement Hanami, who has it's a public artwork in like one of the metro stations in downtown LA. And so it's kind of meant to like represent my like longing for like a deeper connection with him and like my family. And then I usually paint on like found objects, just because growing up and not really having any money, it's just like the easiest thing to do. So I think, hopefully by like understanding all these factors, I can contribute to like a broader conversation about identity and just like understanding each other. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Ryan. I know you worked really hard to get it in here too. It's quite heavy. So next we have Tiana Gregoriona. Tiana is a first-generation college student and undergraduate transfer at UCLA. She's also a current scholar in the Lemelson Anthropological Honors Program for undergraduate research. Tiana's research will explore family narratives and experiences of community among Armenian diasporans in Los Angeles, focusing on identity construction. She hopes to understand how belonging is articulated by descendants of genocide survivors, and her piece reflects the significance of such a tragic history on present-day Armenians. Set in 2020 during the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan, The Malignance of Knowing is a reflection on identity and belonging in diaspora. Again, please look for Tiana's social media and contact information in the program, and let's welcome her.
Hi, my name is Tiana. Thank you for the introduction. So I wrote this piece in 2020, which was a while ago, but it was right after the second war between Azerbaijan and Armenia began. The Second Nagorno-Karabakh War is what it's called, over this little region called Artsakh. That's what it's known as by ethnic Armenians. And I remember during that time, that was a year after I visited Armenia for the first time because I was born here, and it was also the first time my family went to Armenia because my parents were born in Iran. So they themselves were already part of a diaspora, and I'm kind of like the second generation experience of yet another diaspora. So I remember going there, feeling a lot of different things, feeling connected, and some days feeling very detached, and other days because that's not my homeland, but at the same time, it's the homeland of my ancestors. So I definitely felt a connection with the people that I spoke to, but looking around, there wasn't a single place that I could call my home, or that I could call the place that I originated from. And I remember writing this piece because I came home, and in 2020 during the war, I remember myself and my community members all feeling a range of emotions toward who we perceive as the aggressor of the conflict. And a lot of narratives were being spread over media by Armenian diasporans trying to raise awareness about the conflict, which has since ended with the region Artsakh being majorly taken over by Azerbaijan. And so I just wanted to share this piece. It's called The Malignance of Knowing. And it's essentially about the history of the Armenian genocide and how that impacts the Armenian diaspora today, and my personal experience in that. Something I have known since I was very young is that over 100 years ago, more than 1 million Armenians were murdered. The 1915 genocide, an unsuccessful but disastrous attempt to wipe Armenians off the planet, is a fact of my history. It is something that I carry with me each day. I cannot pinpoint when exactly it was that I learned about the genocide. Maybe one day my mother told me. Maybe my Armenian teacher taught me about it during the after-school classes I attended twice a week in elementary school. Maybe one year on April 24th, the Genocide Remembrance Day, curiosity got the better of me and I just had to ask somebody what all the fuss was about. I don't know. There is simply the time in my life of knowing and the time before it. Those two eras are not separated by a single grief-stricken day of realization. I have known for as long as I have known. And when you learn about something like that, there is no forgetting about it. In fact, to know is never to unknow. I cannot erase knowledge that pervades my soul. For that reason, the present is a time of fear for me and for every Armenian. We fear that the past has caught up with our people. Those of us who are part of the widespread Armenian diaspora are not excluded from or ignorant of what our country faces. We sit paralyzed by the current border conflict with Azerbaijan. Technological globalization and mass media are more prominent than ever. We see footage of war with our own eyes. We did not live through the trauma of our ancestors, but their pain flows in our blood and pumps our hearts with truth. We don't have to be 100 years old to feel the suffering of our forebears because we can witness what they endured now. And watching from the sidelines, from a different continent entirely, that brings a different kind of anxiety. I mentioned before that I can't recall exactly when I was granted knowledge of my roots and of the sacrifices that were made for my very existence. Bless you. I have known for as long as I can remember. As I've gotten older, I've come to know more and more, actively seeking more knowledge in a desperate search for reconciliation between then and now. This is primarily because of something else I cannot remember learning initially. Regarding those who survived the Armenian genocide. When we think of survivors of such an event, we tend to picture a certain image in our minds. Families fleeing the country, escaping in boats or on foot, leaving behind their homes and lost loved ones for a chance at a new beginning elsewhere. We imagine refugees huddled together in prayer, whispering names of the unaccounted for in feeble hope for their safety. When we think of survivors, we think something along the lines of a great passage by William Sarian. Destroy Armenia. See if you can do it. Send them from their homes into the desert. Let them have neither bread nor water. Burn their houses and their churches. See if they will not live again. See if they will not laugh again. See if the race will not live again when two of them meet in a beer parlor 20 years after and laugh and speak in their tongue. These are beautiful thoughts, tragedy filled with hope. But do you know what I think of when I think about the survivors of the Armenian genocide? I think of hidden Armenians. I think of the countless survivors who were only spared because they were enslaved. I think of the Armenians who were forced to convert, who lost their language, who were stripped of their culture like bark. I think of the Armenians who undoubtedly live in Turkey today, forever among their denialist oppressor. Just when I believe nothing could be worse than being sentenced to a disguised existence, I remember that many of these hidden Armenians don't even know. Here we arrive again at the fortune of knowing. When I find myself wishing for the bliss of blindness to such a painful past, I think of the Armenians who were orphaned as a self-reminder. Those who never even got the chance to speak a word in their mother tongue, who never knew the faces of their biological parents. Worse still, those Armenians who lived on to hide their heritage from their children. Babies born in a world to which they would only belong while living a lie. Just picture it. To forever speak the language of your silencer. To be forced to drink venom and pay for the antidote with your identity, the highest cost of all. To my fellow Armenians, if you ever find yourself feeling anger or even hatred toward the Turkish people, try to stop for a moment and think. Understand that a dictator is the real perpetrator, not the indoctrinated victims of his authoritarian government. Read about Aram Haykaz, Fethiye Çetin, Ahmet Avakay, Ruhi Su. Remember the hidden Armenians and see that there are many more invisible peoples residing in Turkey than we realize. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiana. Okay, next we have Jasmine Martinez, and this will be the painting to the far right up here. Jasmine is a first-year undergraduate at UCLA studying as an art major. She's originally from Azusa, California, and has been making art all her life. Jasmine will present an oil on canvas entitled Homesick.
So in this piece, it's a portrait of my elementary school from, so if you don't know where Azusa is, it's basically in the San Gabriel Valley. And whenever I tell people like, oh, I'm from Azusa, they'll be like, oh my God, I've heard it's horrible over there. Like there's so much violence and there's all this horribleness that's associated with it. My parents are from Mexico and they immigrated here when they were 15. And so a lot of how I experienced diaspora, it's from where they came from and having to experience like, Azusa is a very mainly Hispanic community and seeing people like almost look down on it because of all these like stereotypes that they have with it it's just something that's really horrible to experience. But in terms of like with school and where I decided to like, the reason why I decided to paint this piece is because after coming to UCLA, I felt really almost ashamed, like, and feeling like I abandoned Azusa and where I came from and my family. Because it's like, you know, I come to this school where it's really well renowned and all these people, you know, it's really expensive to come here and they work hard to come here. And after leaving like a school that's like almost like looked down upon, it's hard to come to one that they like look up upon. And so I just kind of feel like I abandoned those experiences and those lessons I learned from the people from my community. My community was mainly Hispanic and low income. And so in painting this, I wanted to show what almost that abandonment felt like. And that's the reason why I painted it with a lot of foliage and a lot of weeds and leaves and vines growing all over it, almost like it's being taken over. But after a lot of like thought and, you know, thinking about where I am now, I kind of had to realize it's not a bad thing to go to, like, to grow up almost, and to be in a new place. As it's not bad as long as you take with you the experiences and lessons from people from where you grew up. So in leaving my community behind, I never leave them. I take them with me, and in anywhere I go in this world, I want to bring them with me. And that's like another reason why I have like the welcome sign at the top and why there's a caterpillar that becomes a butterfly, because change is not bad and it's just a part of life. And in terms of like home, I believe that no matter where I go, my home can be wherever I feel that I can take and vitally bring with me the experiences, the experiences that I learned from my community. That's it.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Okay, our final presenter is Halia Wu. Halia is a fourth-year cognitive science major, still trying to tell her parents she is not interested in STEM. She will present a work of narrative nonfiction called The Closest Thing We Have.
Hello. Wow. Sorry. So when I wrote this, or before I wrote this, I was like really sad and insecure about like my Korean identity, and then I wrote this, and I'm still sad and insecure, but like now I think I have a little bit of clarity on the fact that it's normal to feel these things. And I cried a lot while writing this, which was cool because I wrote most of this in public. So like the first half I wrote actually in the second floor of this library, and then the last half I wrote in the Burbank IKEA, so I would just be like dripping snot over my Swedish meatballs. But it was I cried a lot because it's very personal to me, and because it's so personal, I'm not actually sure if anything that I wrote here will resonate with anyone else. But for those who can relate to what I've written, this piece is for you. And it's called The Closest Thing We Have. I spent the first half of my summer being a lump. I had just finished my third year at college. I went back home for the break, destined to waste away on the lone mattress that had become my bed. Rereading childhood novels by white authors, I swore I'd push aside to explore more writers of color. There was nothing to do within walking distance except abuse the deals at our local McDonald's. And not a single person trusted me with driving, including myself, so if I left the house at all, it was often only to hover like a neglected ghost over the shopping cart at Costco, while my mom dug through boxes of organic fruit like our lives depended on it. Unlike everyone else I knew, I didn't have an internship in a big city. I didn't have any plans in particular, aside from one in which if death came for me, I'd take it. And somewhere in between the listless haze, I turned 21. Which in the grand scheme of life is nothing, but in the context of college, where every asshole around you has had job offers lined up since they were freshmen, my age to success ratio was pathetic. It was a dull summer, and in that first half, really, I was just gearing up for Korea because it was also a Korean summer. Since coming to California, I have only ever heard about the red autumn leaves that my mom likes so much, or the sweet cherry blossoms that litter pathways in Yeouido. I've never watched from a tall apartment window the snow falling like crazy like I tend to do for an embarrassing assortment of people. Instead, it was always Yeodum, summer, smack dab in the middle of transitioning from one grade to the next, one age to the next. It was always stifling air, screeching cicadas, dried sweat, burning asphalt, chilly relief blasted from air-conditioned storefronts. It was grisly posters of horror films lined up against the walls of subway stations, and floral print parasols above older women in equally floral hats. It was a 13-hour flight across the Pacific watching movies that I definitely wasn't the target audience for, but made me cry anyway. It was taxis that smelled like cigarettes and chewing gum. It was subway cars with chrome-plated seats that made announcements in 4 languages. It was eating junk food on the KTX from Seoul to my grandmother's house at the bottom of the peninsula, a house that still had a stone well and paper doors and a TV shaped like a box. This house made my mom cry sometimes, like when I was 9 years old and writing to a friend in an email that it smelled funny. And then more recently, it was our uncle's car crossing bridges and freeways to visit the mound of dirt and grass under which grandma was buried, unearthing in her place my own mother's grief. A couple days before my flight, I was at such a low point I wished my plane would crash on the way to Incheon. I imagined my aunts in Seoul waiting for my call, only to hear that the ocean had swallowed a misshapen girl with a bad dye job. A kyopo from the way she looked, the news might say, a foreigner with Korean ancestry. Obviously, this did not happen. And anyway, soon after, I was okay enough to be cautiously excited about going to Korea again. To be fair, I can never not be excited. I get butterflies standing in the TSA line at the international wing of the San Francisco airport, where each time without fail, there are elementary schoolers who I want to throttle because they speak Korean leagues better than I ever will. It's like a gentle kiss being strapped to an economy class seat that perpetuates my back problems, while I remind myself that holding in my pee for half a day is still better than using the airplane bathroom. Korea is obsessed with this idea of a first love, and while I still don't know what that is exactly, I know that this is mine. Sun-baked days in my first country. The grip that these summers has around me is almost embarrassing. Because of them, I get unnaturally emotional about aquariums and years that end in odd numbers. The concept of nostalgia, my ability to comprehend it at all, is because of my memories of Korean summers. It's almost as if my existence is self-formed from the culmination of these moments. As if the mosquitoes drink my blood so savagely, and the sun wrings so much sweat from me solely because they sense that my body is the essence of this particular place and time, and they want a taste of the raw power threaded into my skin. At the end of the day, I'm a delusional girl who grew up in California and can't answer the simple question of what my native language is. And so it's difficult to say that I'm native to Korea even though I am. If I can barely speak the first language I learned, where did I go wrong and why me? But if they told me that I am native to Korean summer, I might believe it. Summer is a moment of nakedness. High temperatures force the shedding of your layers and reveal to the world your body closer to its purest form, and how uncomfortably you hold it. You're made vulnerable under sunlight, and because of it, at the same time, you have to be more cautious than ever. And as soon as I came to Seoul, it was so clear how out of place I was everywhere I went. Most glaringly, I didn't look the part. Korea has become so strongly associated with beauty that I felt like a biological defect, like my lack of conventional attractiveness disqualified me from being truly Korean. Which made me angry, because it's not even true. Korean beauty standards are very much influenced by Eurocentric ones, and I mostly refuse to give in to that. Every day I just have to live with the fact that I hate what I look like and hate what I want to look like. My mom wanted me to go to a salon to fix my hair, which at that point was a dark blonde with black roots and green highlights that I thought made me look super cool in California. But like everything else about me, it looked like an absolute train wreck in Korea. It was an act of submission to agree, and I knew I was losing some personality when the stylist smoothed the mess of color into a nondescript brown. But my mom was paying for it, and I never give up an opportunity to use other people's money. At the salon, the stylist clocked instantly that I was foreign, and said a minute into our already painful small talk that he heard in Washington, D.C., men can go into women's bathrooms. And for some reason, it was a casual mention of Washington, D.C. that was almost the most upsetting part of that sentence. But a comment like this isn't uncommon in Seoul, and each time I swallow the words despite myself and feel them sink into my stomach. The fuller my stomach, the more certain I become that I would shatter into a million pieces the moment I dared to find my livelihood within Korea, like a glass jar unable to withstand fire. It took me a while to accept that I am Korean American. Even though I grew up in America, I talk like an American, and have the self-aware narcissism seemingly unique to American girls, the label American is factually incorrect. I don't have citizenship or permanent residency here, and there's a good chance I never will, because America doesn't care that it is what I so reluctantly describe as home, if only because that label applies to literally nowhere else. America will consider keeping me only after I prove how well I can produce American capital. This is why I don't have dreams, because if my existence here is that contingent on something I don't want to do, to dream at all of doing something different is to make the deliberate choice to betray everyone who has kept me alive in this place. And if the dreams do ever find me in my sleep, America peels back my eyelids in the morning and tells me to go to work. Yet I recognize that I am Korean American. When I understood what it means to be Asian in America, I realized if I don't call myself Asian American, I can't properly address the realities of my life. If I hadn't grown up here, but instead in Korea, I would have never gotten annoyed at my mom for making me order for her at restaurants. And I would be embarrassed about her talking to my friends only because I am an edgy teenager, and not also because I don't want them to hear how badly she speaks English. I wouldn't feel a spike of panic and irritation when my dad brings attention to himself in public, and then afterwards I wouldn't feel shame and hatred towards myself for being irritated. I wouldn't have spent so much time as I have imagining my parents going out for lunch on a normal day and then being beaten by a stranger on the street. In Korea, there would not have been the strange upheaval of order in which you, the parent, are helpless and must rely on your child. The night I flew back into San Francisco, I played an old song I'd rediscovered in Korea on repeat. I realized that I had been grieving something all summer. What that something was, I couldn't say in words, but I couldn't stop feeling the acute sense of loss that is now a part of me. I understood I'll never be a kid again, and that for the rest of my life, I'll be unable to make memories of Korea without processing them through some lens of sadness and anger. For the next few days, I couldn't stomach listening to some of the songs I loved. The act of loving something that comes from a certain point in time is a reminder that I'm getting farther and farther away from that time with each day. Maybe music is too powerful. How can a series of sounds be so gut-wrenching? When I look out the window on the 11th floor of an apartment building here in Los Angeles, at night I can catch the view of the city beyond. The tiny lights from the faraway corporate buildings and hotels are breathtaking against the midnight sky, and like I do every time I see this scene, I remember just how much the city reminds me of Korea. Every brilliant nightscape, futuristic building, tranquil green park, I compare to the ones I experienced in my summers there. Seoul defines a city for me, maybe defines a lot more. In my room, I put my earphones in and listen to the albums that make me want to cry. I've never been a good singer, terrible actually, but I've also never been capable of not singing along. I am off-key and nasally, and I get the lyrics wrong occasionally, no matter how many times I've heard the song, which never happens when it's in English. But I like it, my voice against theirs. We know the same language, make the same sounds. Together we offer our helpless love to a faceless girl, a friend, a mother, a past summer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we take some time for a Q&A, I want to thank each and every one of you, all 9 of you. You're all amazingly talented, and it's really been a privilege. I can tell for the audience as well, so I'm speaking on behalf of the audience here. So thank you so much. Let's give them a huge round of applause. Now, we do have time, so does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? Ideally, since there are quite a few of them, can we just maybe try to ask some general questions that maybe any one of them could answer? that might be great. Any takers? And you can ask questions of each other too if you want. Yeah, please.
I wanted to ask about the tapestry, because I have no idea how that works and I'd love to know more.
Yeah, I can explain again. Here, I can go up and point.
We can also move this if you want.
So pretty much, I said before, I painted it. I painted the tapestry first, in like a dark room, because if the ink that I painted it with, or the dye I painted with it, is exposed to light, it changes color. So then I printed out a negative, like a photo negative, do you know what that is? On a large piece of like plastic, transparency, it's like very thin, like a plastic paper kind of. And then I layered the transparency negative on top of the painted cyanotype fabric, the painted fabric, and then I exposed it outside in the sun. So when the light hit the parts of the negative that weren't black or weren't gray, it changed color. So pretty much that's how darkroom photography works too. But I just did that outside with the sun instead. Yeah, so like if you come up later, you can see that like here there's no dye, so there's no photo. Here there's dye, so there's a photo. But here there's dye, but there was no plastic transparency over the photo. So it's just dye that turned color. So if I hadn't put any, like a negative on top of this and exposed it, it would have just been all this dark blue. Yeah, I hope that explains it. And so a lot of times you'll see cyanotypes, but you won't see the brush strokes. So that was kind of like my addition to cyanotyping.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I guess for anyone, how did creating this piece help you, if it did help you understand your identity more? I guess I'll just be curious.
I'll go because I hate being called on. But yeah, so for my piece, yeah, I think it's a really surreal experience to have a mother that in Nigeria, obviously Nigeria was colonized, so if I start crying, don't worry about it. I'm just like a really emotional person, like yeah. But yeah, so in Nigeria, America is kind of seen as this like savior for some reason, even though America is a colonizer, and to this day an imperialist an imperialist occupation in many places in Africa. And the internal conflict that arises every single time she talks about the American dream or about the election cycles and about how she's so proud to be American and how she got her citizenship and how this was such an amazing thing, when I still see Black bodies on the streets every day in the work that I do. I think this kind of allowed me to humanize her experience and also mine as well, and understand that both of these experiences, my loathing for a white supremacist colonial empire and her longing for it, were two sides of the same kind of imperialist coin, in that they were kind of, you can't really have one without the other. So yeah, I think it just kind of helped me not resent that part of her that I didn't understand, and also helped me, understand where that was coming from on my end, where the anger, I guess, persists, and that both of those experiences are valid and results of just living in a white supremacist society just globally, but kind of, yeah, you know, that when you have experienced, you know, being close to houselessness and things like that, that it's valid for you to feel that way, especially as a child of an immigrant that doesn't necessarily have much of a connection to their homeland or their mother tongue, because of my mom's desire to help me survive in this world. But yeah, so I don't know if that really answers the question, but yeah.
Did anyone else want to respond to that one? Okay. Maybe time for one more question. I think I see a hand. Is that Ruby? Hi, Ruby. Ruby is another librarian here at YRL.
So this has been a really lovely experience. I can't believe the breadth of talent. My question is about the process of creating. So your creativity, whether you're writing or painting or whatever you're doing, dancing, do you feel a compulsion to do it? And as many of you as can answer, I would like to know. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruby. Any takers?
I can start.
Yeah.
I've thought about this a lot recently, especially because I transferred into the art program, but I've been an artist all my life. And it's definitely a compulsion. It's definitely something I would do regardless. And it's because I've been given the ability to pursue it with so many resources and instruction, really incredible instruction. It can be incredibly consuming, because when you're able to pay attention to and respond full-heartedly to that compulsion, it becomes this intense cycle that makes me make art. But I would say it's something I've had my whole life, and I have never been myself. I've never been without.
Anybody else want to respond? Okay, well, thank you for those questions. We do have one more kind of thing to get through, which is an award ceremony. So we're going to transition to that. I'm going to call back up to the front Sharon Farb. So we have gift cards for all of you, as I explained, and we had so hoped to have them just ready to give you. There's a little delay, so you'll get those in a couple weeks, but we do, to show our appreciation, we have some certificates and a little surprise gift. Please come to the front for a nice little photo opportunity, and as you come up, grab your gifts from Sharon and stay standing at the front, please. Okay. Sheldon Scobolo.
Graduation, maybe you can graduate now. There you go. There you go. And there it is. Okay. No, you gotta stay over here. Stay over here. Go to
Okay, I see.
There he is. Look at this. You rock, man. I loved your drawing. So good.
Yeah, stay standing. Go ahead and stay standing. Yeah. Why don't you, Sheldon, you can kind of go down a little bit. Yeah, make a little line. Next, Agnes Lynn.
So nice to meet you. I love your work. Here, please have this. You can draw in it. It's blank. Yay, okay. Come on here. Yay, okay. There we go. Agnes, yay.
Keep the applause coming. Next, Chelsea Guy.
Great. I loved it so much. Here's a blank book, you can write more in it. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this.
And Nicole Crawford.
Oh, the food is so powerful. I almost cried. Here we go. You look over here, we're gonna take a picture.
Ryan Hanami.
Yay. Love your things so much. Here's this for your words. Also, we're super powerful. You can draw some stuff in there.
I guess they all know what it is by now, right? Okay. Tiana Gregoriona.
Tweeted you, tagged you, here you go, write some more emails. Thank you so much for coming. Okay.
Jasmine Martinez. Helia Wu.
Your words were so powerful. It really was moved. Thank you so much for being a part of it. So appreciate it. You can put some more in there. Of course, I can.
And Tatiana Hernandez. And let's do one final round of applause. I tried to get a bow. I don't think they want a bow. That's okay. Okay, before you go, everyone, please fill out a survey. You'll see QR codes as you're leaving and on this, this thing in the middle of the room. You can also grab a paper copy if you'd prefer. So thank you so much for coming. Stay and mingle, get some more food, ask questions of our VIPs, and thank you again very much. Bye-bye.
Okay, you guys, serious. Put some of you on social media. That's okay. Tag you. I don't know. Am I American? You know what am I? And I had a lot of internal conflict. It was hard for me to approve of myself and everything like that. But when I was your age, I was like that. It's not worth it. Believe me. Love yourself. I know, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Let me, I'll take your email. How's that? The first one is about the question
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I don't know.
Here? Do they know about the dance? What do you mean?